join and Michael Tracey to talk about war criminal Hunter Biden.
Yeah, once again, we're preempted by bombshell breaking news that just entirely
You know,
overthrows our whole agenda. Not that we had a very rigid agenda, but
getting away with it again. I made like $2,500 on this. I bet at like 25% chance that he would pardon him.
You made $2,500 betting that Joe Biden would pardon Hunter Biden.
Yeah, it was like a 25 cents, so you could make 4 times your money. I thought that was underpriced. I thought there's no reason for him not to do it. It's like
congratulations, Richard. You're a real entrepreneur.
I wish I put more money. I wish I put much money on that as I did on RFK not becoming a.
How much did you lose on that one?
I don't want to say. It's embarrassing.
Come on.
No, it's embarrassing. It's in the 5.
Give us a ballpark. In the 5 figures?
Yeah.
This whole political betting thing, I think, is a scourge and a corrupt practice. I mean,
why is it?
Let's say you bet on RFK Jr. not becoming a cabinet appointment, and information came out that suggested to you that he would in fact become a cabinet appointment. Wouldn't you then have a perverse incentive to try to align the reality as reflected by that new information with your financial interest?
A smarter thing for me to do would just be to sell the shares. I mean, I don't have to keep the shares. I could sell them,
right,
and I can cash out. So,
right. All right. Anyway, let's do a brief introduction. Not that we have to, but I just wanted to let people know that we are doing something a little bit unusual, which is that we hooked up a very novel technological solution here to stream both on X and YouTube, and then also on Substack. I know Elon Musk wants to erect a barrier between Substack and X because of his own selfish interests, but we found a workaround. Hopefully he doesn't purge us from the platform because of that. But make sure to go to mtracy.net if you want to subscribe to my website /Substack, and then richardhanania.com if you care to do so for his. I think mine would be preferable, but I'll leave that up to you. Okay, so we were just preempted by Hunter Biden getting pardoned.
Yeah. So did you read that? Did you read Biden's statement? I read like half of it. Let me read it. Want to read it with the?
You want to do a dramatic reading of it?
Yes, I'll do it in Joe Biden's voice.
Here's the deal.
Here's the deal. No, you have to be completely bumbling and incoherent. Today I signed up apart from my son Hunter. All right, that's not a good impression. From the day I took office, it's
not even possible to do a real reading in Joe Biden's voice of this announcement because the syntax is too clear.
Yeah. Today I signed up. I'm not good at impressions. Today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. I could try to do 2013 Biden. Today I signed a pardon for my son Hunter. From the day I took office, I said I would not interfere with the Justice Department's decision making, and I kept my word even as I watched my son being selectively and unfairly prosecuted. Without aggregating factors like use in a crime, multiple purchases, or buying a weapon as a straw purchaser, people are almost never brought to trial on felony charges solely for how they filled out a gun form. Those who were late paying their taxes because of serious addiction. I love that. That's an excuse to not pay your taxes. Pay them back subsequently with interest and penalties are typically given non-criminal resolutions. It is clear that Hunter was treated differently. Now, I think this is right.
I do too. I mean, I was just going to say, but finish your point.
Well, I wasn't making a point. I was still reading, but yeah, it's a little bit more. The charges in his cases came about only after several of my political opponents in Congress instigated them to attack me and oppose my election. Then a carefully negotiated plea deal, agreed to by the Department of Justice, unraveled in the courtroom, with a number of my political opponents in Congress taking credit for bringing political pressure on the process. Had the plea deal held, it would have been a fair, reasonable resolution of Hunter's cases. No reasonable person who looks at the facts of Hunter's cases can reach any other conclusion that Hunter was singled out because he is my son, and that is wrong. There has been an effort to break Hunter, who has been 5.5 years sober, even in the face of unrelenting attacks and selective prosecution. In trying to break Hunter, they've tried to break me, and there's no reason to believe it will stop here. Enough is enough. folks. No,
Biden's
folks.
even using the amorphous they, the mortal sin that would ordinarily be associated with the right, the nefarious they that's always conspiring to
I think
do evil deeds.
he makes his opponents in Congress. I think for my entire career, I followed a simple principle: just tell the American people the truth.
Opponents in the Justice Department as well, who are, I guess, allowing themselves to be pressured by
Yeah, I guess they
political
are.
actors in
Yeah,
Congress. Is Merrick Garland Joe
they'll be.
Biden's
I
opponent?
wonder what actual mechanism Congress has to play. Anyways, I says they'll be fair.
Well, they have tried to, like in the Trump special prosecutor cases, there have been attempts to fiddle with the allocation of funds for the special counsel's operations. So the Congress does have the power of the purse in relation to federal charges, and there was a special prosecutor that was set up to prosecute to handle the Hunter Biden matter.
Yeah. Let me finish last paragraph. For my entire career, I have followed a simple principle: just tell the American people the truth. They'll be fair-minded. Here's the truth: I believe in the justice system, but as I have wrestled with this, I also believe raw politics has infected this process, and it led to a miscarriage of justice. And once I made this decision this weekend, there was no sense in delaying it further. I hope Americans will understand why a father and a president would come to this decision. I think that's a bad way to close it out. I think you would understand why a father would come to his decision. I don't know. I don't know if you should say that part out loud.
But that's obviously the driving motivation. So why not just say it? I mean, I do think probably a lot of people would relate to that reasoning.
Yeah. Yeah, this is Trump. I mean, Trump, nobody would expect him to do this, and I don't think anyone holds it against him. I'm fascinated. Like the left,
no one would expect Biden to do it. You mean?
No, nobody would expect Trump to do this. I mean, people would expect nobody. I mean, everyone would expect Trump to do this. Watching
and Trump already did it. He pardoned Charles Kushner, the father of his son-in-law, who he's now just appointed to be ambassador to France.
Yeah, and then yeah, right. Anyways, yeah.
I mean one thing is that the pardon power is a really wild power. The president just has carte blanche to remove any criminal liability from whoever he wants for the purposes of a federal prosecution. I'm fully aware that it's in the Constitution, but it's so ripe for doling out nepotistic benefits in one of the most severe possible ways in terms of somebody's susceptibility to being criminally prosecuted. That it's strange that I have to maybe read into more why the founding fathers thought that this was a reasonable thing to bestow the president with the power to do. There's countless examples of sleazy pardons over the years. Bill Clinton pardoned his half brother Roger right on the eve of leaving office. Mark Rich. I mean, Trump just pardoned random rappers who supported him over the years, like Israeli spies and things. I mean, it's really a bizarre power. But substantively, I'm one of maybe the vanishingly few people in the entire United States who has long taken a skeptical position toward both the Trump prosecutions and this Hunter Biden prosecution. Obviously, the Hunter Biden prosecution is much smaller bore. It was just him allegedly misstating his use of narcotics on a federal gun application, and then that was coupled with some tax avoidance. Whereas obviously the Trump prosecutions, the federal ones, were much more sweeping and potentially impinged on much more consequential issues. But I've been skeptical of both of them. So, and I'll just read to you what I said, I believe, when he was first indicted. This was in June of 2023. I just looked it up.
By the way, you want to ask ChatGPT why the founders wanted a pardon power and see what it says?
Yeah, let's ChatGPT summarize that for us in 2 seconds.
That's what this is built for. Why?
Who cares about actually reading things? And
we'll read the answer.
We'll read the answer. Who cares about reading more than about 150 words total?
Why did the American founders grant such a broad pardon power to the president? Okay.
And to
The
governors,
American,
as far as I know, every governor has broad pardon power for state.
yeah, it was in the air. It was the tradition. The American founders granted the pardon part as part of its effort to create a strong yet balanced executive branch. Reasons for granting: correcting judicial errors, promoting mercy. The founders believed in justice, and this is very general. Let me see if they have quotes from any of them. Ensured flexibility in governance. In situations such as insurrections or rebellions, the pardon power allows the president to offer clemency as a tool for restoring peace and order. Alexander Hamilton noted in the Federalist Papers, number 74, that the pardon power could be useful in granting clemency to rebels to encourage their return to loyalty. That's interesting. So that was
That's true, and that was granted to Confederates. I don't have the specifics right at the top of mind, but that was that particular justification for the pardon power, meaning to quell disorder or to establish some degree of normalcy in the aftermath of a rebellion or like an actual insurrection, not January 6th, but the Civil War. Like that power was employed. And then Jimmy Carter also used the clemency power to basically give a blanket pardon to Vietnam, quote, draft dodgers. So, I mean, I could see the logic there, but when it's just used as a nepotistic sort of benefit, if you happen to have a family member who's the president,
yeah,
that doesn't seem to relate to that core justification or rationale. But let me go. So here's what I said on June 20th, 2023. Seems strange that it took the DOJ 5 years, because remember, this investigation into Hunter Biden started in 2018, so when Trump was still president the first time. Seems strange that it took the DOJ 5 years to investigate a handful of ultimately small bore gun and tax charges against Hunter Biden, then coincidentally decided to announce a plea deal the week after indicting Trump. And then the plea deal was rescinded after a lot of political pushback, because there were claims largely from Republicans about a two-tier justice system or inequitable application of the justice system politically. And I mean, I know how you've written about how there's some flaws in that logic, and we could talk about, Bob Menendez or whomever else, but it did seem like that there was a political motivation for some elements within the Justice Department, because this was right after Trump had been indicted on his first federal charges in June of 2023. The first federal charges Trump was indicted on were the so-called classified documents charges. And then not long after that, Hunter Biden gets indicted. So you could see there being like an institutional rationale within certain elements of the Justice Department to prove that they were politically even-handed, and also going after the Democratic president's son. But then the plea deal was rescinded.
Yeah.
And then Hunter Biden was indicted in September of 2023 for these relatively small bore charges. And I think Biden's correct on the merits when he says that if this was not his son, if the case didn't have a unique political profile, it's really difficult to imagine a 6-year or a nearly 6-year process to bring about a conviction for, a minor tax evasion, or I think actually it was a lot of money. It was like $1 million or something in terms of non-payment of taxes, and then a gun charge. So I think Biden's probably correct, but like if some of the political machinations that went into these charges being leveled had to do with Biden's Justice Department wanting to like cover its bases after also having gone after Trump, then it's kind of just a tangle of mess. But I don't disagree that it seemed like excessive in terms of the excessive punishment or excessive pursuit of these particular charges that are
both of these
minor.
guys. Both of these guys. Now, I disagree with you on the Trump prosecutions. I think the one from New York was BS. I think the others are legitimate. But I'll say about Hunter and the one in the Trump prosecution in New York. They're both like getting Al Capone for tax evasion, and that there's just an idea that Hunter and Trump are just like bad guys. And Hunter, they never brought the thing that people like in the court of public opinion. that people are most outraged about with Hunter is Burisma. He was never charged with anything having to do with Burisma, right? But this is like the one thing people think about when they say Hunter is corrupt. And even the stuff that came out in Congress that he was, talking to these business partners and saying, "Oh, Joe is going to hook us up and this and that." Biden was never connected to that. But there's a general idea that Hunter was corrupt and trading on his family name for whatever reason. Prosecutors have
Which is
never
true.
thought.
I mean, that
Yeah,
general idea is correct, but I
right.
don't know. Was it ever even alleged that Hunter Biden's dealings with Burisma were illegal? They were
Well,
probably
that's
corrupt.
what
They
I'm
were
saying.
probably
Exactly what
a
I'm
form
saying.
of graft, but that wasn't what the illegality was alleged to be.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
But
They're
the Al Capone thing doesn't hold up because Al Capone was also thought to have been a criminal mastermind.
okay. It's not in that way. Maybe okay. So it's not exactly that.
I
Al
think it's
Capone
kind of
committed crimes.
disanalogous because the core illegality here with Hunter Biden is the tax evasion. Al Capone's core illegal conduct was not evading taxes. That's just what they could nail him on.
Okay, they may have believed. I think it's possible they believed that the conduct was illegal. It was just hard to prove in court, or it required some stretching of the law.
Who's they?
The prosecutor, whatever prosecutors, the
But
Department of Justice.
to my knowledge, the special prosecutor Weiss in the District of Delaware hadn't investigated Hunter Biden's dealings with Burisma as potentially illegal conduct. It always had to do with this bizarre and fairly low-level drug and tax issue.
Weiss came along later. He was independent, right? He was after right. But I'm saying he could easily be influenced by this stuff. So Hunter Biden, if he never had Burisma, if he never had these text messages come out, would he be prosecuted for this tax evasion stuff and to the extent and this gun stuff? I don't think so. I think that's the thing. And with Trump, I think people just think he's breaking norms and violating the law all the time. And so I think that's what's going on here. It's a kind of like you put a target on your back and then they find a reason to get you. And so yeah, I mean it makes sense. It makes sense that Joe would pardon him. I mean, I don't know. It's interesting to see people at least in my timeline, people on the left are upset about it. And so
I saw Nate Silver had a bizarrely overwrought reaction. It was something like
senile old bastard or something.
Yeah. I mean, it was a blatant act of deceit or instance of deceit for Joe Biden to explicitly and unambiguously say that he would not grant clemency to his son when everybody kind of doubted that was realistic. And so, I mean, you can't really blame people for noting that obvious falsehood.
Yeah. Nate Silver says that's why Trump gains a following, but in part because elites of all stripes are absolutely out for themselves and complete moral hypocrites, and Democrats take a claim to moral superiority. Come on, I don't think that this is why people support Trump. If you hate nepotism,
no, that is not a good reason to support Trump. That you are not taking a sledgehammer to a nepotistic graft.
People who want to support Trump unquestionably will use this and use it to say, oh, this is they're all corrupt and they're all self-dealing. But if you're making that argument, you're already on Team Trump anyway, and you're just looking for excuses.
Yeah, I think so. And also, isn't there kind of like a conservative argument in favor of this, just in the sense of, I don't know, promoting family values or something, like promoting the idea of
you're still doing promoting family values after Trump? You're old enough probably to remember. And they're like, oh yeah, we have to go after this blowjob stuff because it matters if the president is virtuous,
or a sense of like paternal duty or something, like even if it doesn't meet a standard ethical test, but that the idea that intra-familial loyalty trumps all else. I could see that being cast as like a conservative argument in favor of this in terms of prioritizing or elevating familial mores or loyalty above all else.
Yeah, although we're true. You could make that argument. We're well beyond the kind of consistency with conservatives and family values and standards.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I just don't think the one thing that always struck me as odd about the Hunter Biden thing was, again, yeah, you're right that the special counsel was installed by Merrick Garland
By the
fairly
way,
late in the process.
another
But
Nate
the
Silver
idea that the case was just in limbo for 5 years, including under the Trump administration, when the ultimate charges brought were really not complicated. I mean, I think a competent U.S. attorney probably could have come up with those charges within, I don't know, maybe a week. That always was curious. And I think so. There was probably some initial hesitance to bring charges against Hunter Biden by virtue of his connection to Joe Biden, including under the Trump Department of Justice, because they didn't want to be accused of potentially criminally prosecuting Trump's political opponents. And then once Biden gets into office, there are also some similar constraints or disincentives that come up. So obviously, if you're dealing with the offspring of a president or a presidential candidate, those factors are going to become relevant. But like the underlying conduct was just not that significant. And so, I mean, it'd be one thing if, like, I don't know, he really committed this grave offense. I mean, another thing is that
by the way, another Nate Silver.
Another thing is that, like, a lot of right wingers don't think that there should be any government control over the obtainment of firearms. So you can make a Second Amendment case in favor of the pardon.
And they want to defend the IRS too.
Right.
But Nate Silver, has had, like, he's like, don't vote for any Democrat in 2028 who doesn't repudiate the Hunter pardon within 48 hours. This is too much. This is too much.
Okay, that's a little hysterical. Like, I probably am not going to be encouraging anyone to vote for a Democrat in 2020 either, but like, this would be the least important reason not to do so.
It would not be. That's the top of my list.
I mean, was Nate Silver ever outraged? Is he specifically outraged about? I mean, would he have, if he were blogging away in the year 2000, would like the Roger Clinton pardon have been similarly outrageous for him? I'm not sure. I think there have been a lot more dirty pardons than this one, I think, because that actually did relate to genuinely grave misconduct. Like George H.W. Bush basically pardoned everybody that was associated with the Iran-Contra scandal. So I don't know. It just, in the grand scheme of sleazy pardons, this one doesn't really gin up a whole lot of indignation for me.
What I'm getting from Silver is that he believes that, and this is probably how a lot of leftist liberals feel, is that basically there is like this assault on institutions and this lack of trust. And like one thing Democrats have is this kind of moral superiority. We believe in an impersonal justice system.
I guess that's where I part ways with Nate Silver. I never believed that the Democrats claimed their moral superiority
because
they do claim to have that moral superiority for political purposes, but it's always been a fiction.
I disagree. I think they do have a claim of moral superiority on the Republicans, and you agree with me. Trump would
in what respect?
Huh?
Well, in what respect do Democrats have a claim to moral superiority?
Well, okay, I'll give you an example. I wrote an article on this. I compared Ken Paxton to Bob Menendez. Ken Paxton was corrupt, was impeached by a bipartisan. He had like whistleblowers within his office as AG of Texas who were Republicans who he hired himself, right? This guy was...
I watched a lot of that impeachment trial actually in Texas.
Yeah. And MAGA made him into a hero for no reason other than they're pro-corruption. And I compared this to Bob Menendez. And it was like, you know what? Like the Democratic governor and like a lot of Democrats in the Senate came out against him. He didn't become a hero. His approval rating collapsed among Democrats. So I just said this is like a perfect comparison where you have like a Republican who's corrupt. He's going to be replaced by another Republican. This isn't like a Senate. It's going to flip the Senate or anything. And MAGA just gets behind him because MAGA is just pro-corrupt.
Ken Paxton would be replaced by another Republican Attorney General of Texas, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And Menendez would be
well. I mean, likewise, if New Jersey happened to have a Republican governor, which nearly happened in 2021,
but that's what I'm saying. It's a perfect comparison because both of them would be replaced by someone of the same party.
Right.
So it's a perfect.
But how would the Democrats have acted if their basically
Maybe,
unanimous denunciation of Bob Menendez would have had led to a Republican governor
yeah, maybe
replacing
they
his
would have.
interim appointment, his
Maybe
interim
it would have been
replacement.
different. The point is, the Republicans are corrupt even when they don't have a partisan interest in being corrupt. They're just pro-corruption. Democrats, maybe their partisanship matters.
I don't know. I
And
mean, I think if you watch the Ken Paxton trial, I thought that they had him pretty well nailed. But I mean, there was an argument, and I can't really rehearse all the specifics right now, just off based on memory. But I think there was like an okay argument that maybe it would have at least generated some reasonable doubt. I mean, I think obviously the Ken Paxton people were trying to make it seem as though he was being subjected to a deep state equivalent witch hunt and trying to draw comparisons or parallels with Trump, which didn't seem accurate to me because, as you mentioned, yeah, there were people in his office who were the ones who initiated the action against Paxton, and they were all Republicans that didn't have any obvious partisan or ideological reason to go after him other than on their part a good faith observation of potentially corrupt conduct. But I think there might have been some arguments that suggested he was not actually guilty. Like, I mean, I think I'm trying to remember now. I think even those who voted to acquit him, that said, even those who had voted to acquit him, probably would have conceded that he engaged in some seedy behavior. Like he would like be maneuvering around with like his secret girlfriend or something.
look,
Whatever. But I think I know what you mean. I'm just not sure that.
Look, do you think any Republican, if Don Jr. was being prosecuted, can you imagine like Trump? You imagine Trump would have let it get to this point? Trump would have let him like even get put on trial? Like no, and no Republican would have complained. Not a single Republican would have expected anything different from Trump, who wasn't already another Trumper or who wasn't already some kind of opposition. There's no comparison here. There's no comparison at all. You know it. You can
actually, well, yeah. I mean, and to your point. It's not like there's been a huge groundwell of support for Eric Adams among Democrats.
It's from the support is from Republicans.
Yeah, they're coming from Republicans.
They just love corruption. Yeah, they just love corruption.
I mean, Eric Adams is trying to angle himself for potentially, it seems, a pardon from Trump by being at least neutral toward Trump or even mildly.
Thing, I mean, Blagojevich was caught on, and the Illinois GOP was really angry at Trump for this. He was caught on tape actually trying to sell Obama's Senate seat.
And he fervently denies that. He says that was all misconstrued.
Yeah.
And that the Illinois legislature's impeachment of him and removal of him was rash. And, I actually have watched within the past year or so him giving a full account of that episode. And I think there may be some decent points raised. But I think I take your point on in terms of the thrust of it, which is that there's much more of a baked in refusal on the part of Republicans and conservatives to believe that anybody, quote, on their side could be rightly accused of corruption unless they also have a political grievance with them. Like you could see like some rhino potentially being accused of corruption and them going along with it. Right. But like if anybody who is in concert with their political preferences got accused, then you could see them like basically just obstinately refusing to ever acknowledge there could be some credibility to it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So this is what the silver people are pissed about. They're saying that they lose kind of the moral high ground and this matters and blah blah blah. That's why he would say I think Roger Clinton is not the same thing because we didn't have this kind of more kind of explicit corruption and claims of hypocrisy, and this was tearing our society apart. So that I think is the Nate Silver argument.
Okay,
even though I think it goes too far, I think that
I think that argument's seems a little bit too, I don't know, hysterical, or he seems to be having like some weird emotional reaction right now where he has like this deep-seated grudge against Biden's poor stewardship of the Democratic Party or whatever, which is just like not an active factor for me in evaluating any of this.
Well,
I think like Nate Silver has this like pent up animus toward people who were telling him that like Biden shouldn't step down for the nomination for
No,
months.
He wanted Biden to step down.
No, I mean he's reacting belatedly. Like he has this pent up frustration with people who were telling him that he was wrong to advocate for Biden to step down.
Yeah. He was angry about Biden for a very long time. And to be fair, he was correct. Biden was in no shape to run. I think that became clear to everyone. And this was
I'm not sure that I had my doubts as to whether he was correct.
Really, you're a Biden.
Well, I mean, I never thought it was obvious that Kamala Harris is going to be a superior candidate to Joe Biden.
I think so. I wasn't talking even about that.
And Biden overperformed Kamala Harris with every demographic.
I'm not even talking about the political aspect of it. Silver would say that he couldn't vote for even as much as he hated Trump. He couldn't vote for Biden. He thought it was irresponsible to vote. So he just thinks he can't do the job.
But Silver's argument was also that Biden couldn't beat Trump.
That's also an argument, but I think
he made both arguments.
I think his anger comes from the fact that he didn't believe Biden. He couldn't even vote for Biden as much as he hates Trump. That's impressive because he takes an establishment regular view of Trump, that Trump is, anti-democratic and trying to coup and all that. But he says, I couldn't vote for Biden. I'd vote for third party. I wouldn't vote. I heard him say at one point. And so I think
but he was staking his professional reputation or analysis on the idea that Biden was too fatally flawed by dint of his age to actually beat Trump in the 2024 election. So he was trying to agitate for Biden to step aside and trying to convince Democrats to wage some kind of effort to convince Biden to not seek the nomination. And according to Nate Silver, it became too late. And then he did have a honeymoon period where he was, I think, irrationally praiseworthy of Kamala Harris. Like for some reason, Nate Silver was like swooning over her convention speech, which I thought was, basically just mediocre. And like, he was like cheering for her debate performance and stuff, which is just odd. I mean, his saga over the past year has been something to behold. So I think he's kind of like venting some of that frustration now because Biden appears to have done something that would be regarded as like straightforwardly corrupt.
It fits with his critique of Biden, that Biden is selfish and doesn't care about the future of the country and only thinks right. So it fits perfectly with what he thinks about Biden in the first place. So yeah,
I would ask Nate Silver if he was here with us, if he blessed us with his presence. Maybe we'd have to pay him like I don't know how many Bitcoin to join us for a few minutes. What do you make of Biden's rationale on the merits? I mean, have you looked into the genesis of these charges against Hunter Biden such that you can tell us one way or another?
Yeah.
Whether you think Biden is correct or incorrect to say that there were political factors which gave rise to Hunter Biden being subjected to very onerous criminal penalties for conduct which seems very strange should have occasioned it in the manner that it did, where these are offenses from the fall of 2018.
By the way, here's a tweet from. Well, that makes the work ahead a lot harder.
The work ahead. The work of what? Invading Iraq again? The work ahead. From really has some gall.
Well, here's Eric Holder. Let's see. Eric Holder is popping up in my timeline, which never happened before, so this must be huge. Let's see what Eric Holder said. Hunter. He said Hunter and then space. Here's the reality. Period. Space. No U.S. attorney would have charged his case given the underlying facts. Oh, Holder is coming out in favor of the pardon. After a 5-year investigation, the facts are discovered only made that clear. Had his name been Joe Smith, blah, blah, blah. Pardon warranted. Ask yourself, do you really think that Kash Patel is qualified to lead?
Well, here's where Democrats really are shooting themselves in the foot in terms of a hypocrisy argument. I don't know if this is what Nate Silver is talking about, but what I would say is, what I would observe is, if you're going to argue that if his name was Hunter Smith, he never would have been charged, that's basically the identical argument that Republicans have been making about Trump on a whole host of legal fronts. Like, I do think there's some merit in that argument being made about Trump when it relates to, for example, the civil charges that were brought against the Trump organization in New York State by Letitia James, the attorney general. Like, if it was the Smith organization rather than the Trump organization, would they have done such an elaborate analysis of like the internal financial dealings of this firm and brought a civil penalty for him allegedly overstating his assets by saying like Mar-a-Lago wasn't worth what he claimed it was. And actually, other members of the Trump organization were criminally charged, like Alan Weisselberg, who is the chief financial officer. So if Democrats want to make that argument that this never would have been charged if it hadn't been Joe Biden's son, then they're kind of giving some credence to the other argument, to that argument also being made on behalf of Trump.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think we. Yeah.
All right, we exhausted that one. Okay, so what do you? So Kash Patel.
Yeah, this is disturbing. This is actually, I think, quite disturbing. Did you ever read the Atlantic profile by that woman? I think her name is Elena Plott or something.
Yeah, I know who Elena Plott is. I don't think I've ever read that article.
Okay, I tweeted it today, and she has you can look at it. It's an old profile.
She's one of, in terms of Atlantic writers, she's a relatively better one. She's actually a pretty good reporter.
Yes, Ilana is a good writer. This guy, Kash Patel, his entire qualification, he was like, his whole thing, his entire career, it's not like he did anything else. It's not like he would be anyone in politics if he wasn't just the person who always went out of his way to kiss Trump's ass more than anyone else. Like, that's how he got into Trump's favor. He went on conservative media. He basically he becomes an official in the Trump administration. Trump leaves. He goes around selling anti-vax supplements to cure yourself from the vaccine, writing children's books about how Trump is God.
Wait, hold on. Just a point of factual clarification. When you say he sold anti-vax supplements, he's selling supplements that he's saying ought to be taken in lieu of vaccines. Actually, don't know.
Vaccines. Let me look at this up.
What's an anti-vax supplement?
It's actually to cure yourself of the vaccine, I think. Let me check to make sure. It was like vaccine supplements. Yeah, it's hard to find now. All the news is about him. Vaccine supplements. Let's see if the New York Times. Yeah, I think let me see. I've read.
Where can I get some of these anti-vax supplements to boost my brain power? How many IQ points will I gain if I take them?
Warrior Essentials. And okay, the New York Times describes them as anti-vaccine diet supplements. They don't say what that actually means, but I don't
understand what an anti-vaccine diet
I remember reading it at some point that, like, these anti-vaxxers, they think that the vax actually gives you health problems. So you take supplements to cure yourself.
Well, it did give some people health problems, right? Like, what about micro
supplements? Anyways, and I know you don't care about norms, Michael, but
the vaccine did give some people health problems, right? Like myocarditis for younger people. So, like, if can you get a supplement that will alleviate those adverse health effects? What, are you all right? Like, do you need like an ambulance?
I need anti-vax supplements.
Yeah, you need
too many vaccines.
Maybe Dr. RFK as just the potion for you to take.
Anyways, let me just finish my point. And I know you're sometimes skeptical of norms, but there's a norm that, like, the FBI director serves for 10 years. You don't just fire him with every administration. I think that's a generally good norm. And, like, to do this, to fire this guy, and then for Kash Patel, this guy was just like the embodiment of everything wrong with the MAGA movement. I think it's
that norm has already been breached. Trump already fired the previous FBI director before the end of his 10-year term.
Well, it was Trump who fired him, right?
Right. I'm saying that if you want to valorize that norm, that's already been breached
by Trump himself. Yeah. Okay.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I do think that there's a decent argument. And actually, if you read the Project 2025 document, which liberals had such an exaggerated reaction to for all the wrong reasons, it says in the section having to do with, like, reform of the FBI, that there's no reason why the FBI director ought not to just be a political appointee with the same tenure as any other political appointee. So I don't think there's anything on principle wrong with making the director of the FBI more directly responsive to the elected president in terms of his status as a political appointment rather than one who's kind of ensconced away from the ordinary political back and forth. Like, why should it be that the Secretary of State or the Secretary of Defense or the Secretary of the Interior?
Are you able to mute me on your end on the YouTube one?
Yes. God. I don't know. Should I call 911 or something? I mean, this is getting disturbing. Okay. So I was just saying that I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with subjecting the position of FBI director to the same kinds of political incentives that are operative for any other cabinet appointment. So why shouldn't it be that just as a president coming into office gets to appoint the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Interior, whomever, in accordance with his political goals or political mandate, so to say, why couldn't that same logic also apply to his appointment of an FBI director? I think insulating the role of the FBI director into this little like niche that's been carved out within the security state apparatus seems a bit anachronistic. So I don't object to that on principle.
Michael, I'm gonna get a cough drop. I'll be back.
Okay, and also I also don't agree with Richard. I mean, maybe I should wait for him to come back before I make this rebuttal to what he was just saying about Kash Patel, but I don't agree with his depiction of Kash Patel entirely. I think that Kash Patel played an important role in furnishing a lot of the primary source material that did decisively challenge much of like the narrative underpinnings of the whole Russiagate issue when he was the senior staff member on the House Intelligence Committee under Devin Nunes. So Kash Patel wrote or was an author of the so-called Nunes memo in 2018, which, if people don't remember, was basically a memo that accused the FBI and other agencies of essentially colluding unjustifiably against Carter Page and obtaining a FISA warrant against Carter Page by citing the Steele dossier to the FISA court, which was an enormous breach of any conceivable ethical conduct with which those prosecutors should have conducted themselves, because they were using a fabricated opposition research document to obtain one of the most invasive possible, if not the most invasive possible search warrants on an American citizen. And that Nunes memo was pilloried at the time by like Adam Schiff and the Democrats and much of the media as supposedly being a conspiracy theory or of trying to, deflect from Trump. And of course, there would have had to be some partisan motivation behind those investigative efforts that Kash Patel was part of undertaking. But on the substance, he was basically vindicated on that. That's all but been proven as of now. That there were these extremely devious, underhanded, indefensible methods employed to surveil Carter Page, and then also by extension other elements potentially of the Trump campaign operation in 2016 and even into 2017. Because remember, the FBI investigation continued into Trump's first term when he was still in office. So I don't agree that Kash Patel has no qualifications other than he became like a hero on conservative media. I do, though, question and on the positive side of the ledger, at least from my perspective. Are you back?
I'm back. Michael, I don't know how much longer I'm going to last. Do you want to switch it over to Substack?
Well, yeah, I mean, people are still. We're on Substack right now, right?
Yeah, but I want to force them to go to Substack so they can subscribe to us.
You think people will actually be forced to go on, or are we kind of just like losing a lot of audience?
It's an experiment we can run.
Okay. So people, if you want to watch the rest of this, you have to go to my Substack at mtracy.net
It's
or
yeah,
Richard's.
richardhanania.com, or you can go to my Twitter feed right now, and there's a link. It's the second to last tweet. Yeah.
Okay, and if people don't like this experiment, then I guess we'll have to try something else next time. And I'm Richard. I mean, your coughing fit has kind of ruined the party here.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's AMA with Michael. Well, actually, let me post. Can you post it in the? Can you post the link in this thing
Let's see.
in the YouTube?
I'm doing this under duress just because Richard has this crazy idea of switching everybody to Substack. But let's so where am I getting the link from you?
It's on my subs. It's on my Twitter feed. Watch me cough up a lung. Here. I'll DM you the link.
Okay.
You got it. Michael Tracey.
Okay, I just posted in the comments where
Okay,
people
yeah.
can go
And I'm
to
connected
fit
to
the.
YouTube
Okay, so we'll see.
Go to
We'll
Substack.
see you, the rest of you, over at Substack, hopefully for the remainder of this discussion.
Okay.
All right, so now I'm going to end the YouTube /X version.